Okay, so I'm Tom Allen. I look around here, I see several people I know, but I'm a technology executive. I've been involved in big companies, but also in 7 startups, including my own. I've done things that will date me. I've been one of the first voice over IP soft switches and a Wi-Fi gateway that lets you seamlessly roam in and out. And I judge business plans in several universities here in Texas. And I've also been a mentor to Tech Wildcatters, where I took a cohort of 7 companies, prepared them to go out and get funding once I was sort of done with them, if you will. Tom Allen, that's me.
I'm Rick Tatt. I've lived in Plano 30 some years. Came up here first to work for a 7 Rosen Bayless funded company. We created the first wireless email in '93. So I've been involved with a few startups along the way, kind of morphed from that communication side of the business over towards a little more back end stuff, and then some cloud computing until I discovered this thing. And this is a thing, and it connects to the internet. So it must be an internet of things. Anyway, so no, I've been involved with several startups, but I founded the predecessor company of Glider. Peter and I work with Glider, and we have created the first precision foot controller for gaming and other digital input uses. So got haptics in it, and you can do so many things with it. If you're interested, if you want to invest, that's even better. We'll talk about that later.
Riley King, CEO at Forge Keyboard and Caraporter, and I've been graduated with my master's degree from Georgia Tech. Taught at Georgia Tech for a little bit. A project I was working on caught the attention of Toyota, which is what kind of ended up pulling me out here to Texas. Worked at their headquarters for a few years, and my startup that I was building on the side started to gain a lot of traction. So I quit my corporate job and have been full time on this for several years now. We've done a couple of 6-figure Kickstarter campaigns. We make intelligent keyboards as well as keyboard replacements, and I'm here to share whatever limited wisdom I may have gathered along the way.
And I'm Peter Bartnick. I'm not from here, as you can probably tell. I've been here 30 years though. Met Rick on a CompuServe forum for telecom back in paging, was it 92? So been here for a long time, worked in and out of startups for most of my I was going to say, let's get an idea of what our undergraduate degrees were in and how we morphed into the roles that we have at the moment, starting with Tom.
So my undergraduate degree from UTD is in math science, and I will tell you that just about killed me. And I was going to Harris Corporation at the time, so I was working full time and going to school at night. And that's where I got the startup bug. But also while I was at Harris, I was selected to go to the University of Florida for what they call the executive MBA. It was a special deal between Harris and University of Florida. And I will tell you that I think they did kill me. There was they sequestered us in Florida for 16 weeks. Our family could only visit twice. We couldn't go home.
But you were at the beach,
Do what?
you were at the beach. You were in Melbourne.
You know, the people that I was in school with, they know where we were, but you know what goes on in Florida stays in Florida or something like that. I'm going to claim we worked really hard. That we didn't go anywhere to do anything.
So then you morphed into communication.
Well, so Harris was a data communications company, but my first startup, I just had it on my mind that Harris is a big company, and big companies, in my mind, they ruined my career. And I wanted to go to a startup to refresh myself. And so I got involved in a startup company. It was the first one I went to. We digitized the telephony network. We digitized the Sabre network for American Airlines. But what I found out through startups is you get the most experience for time and grade because you do everything. And there is nothing you do not do. And if you stayed in a big company all your life, you just wouldn't have gotten the experience. So voice over IP, Wi-Fi gateways, prepaid calling cards, a couple of things I wrote to the ground. I don't tell people that much.
So before we go to Rick, we've got a big group here. By quick show of hands, who's been a founder or an early stage employee? So that's 60-70%.
So come on up.
Yeah.
On a panel. So great. So I got my degree in computer science and math from Iowa State University over 50 years ago. Believe it or not. And
He graduated at 13.
yeah, 13. Yeah, so I've been software. So I've been working in software of some sort ever since then. Everything from embedded in firmware and assembly, Motorola, or Medtronic, and then I got into communications, which actually brought me down to Texas to Tandem Computers in Austin. I was responsible for getting them on ISO protocols like X400 and such. And then we also did X25, fault tolerant. You could actually pull the CPUs out while it was running and put it back in. That was pretty cool. And then as I said, I came up to Dallas to do wireless email, went paging. And then, after 2001, I did some work at Ericsson with Peter. We actually came up with the idea for Zillow, Google Maps, Yahoo Finance, all these things we had ideas for at Ericsson, everything, but never turned into anything at Ericsson. So, but anyway, yeah, so float around. But I've never done a hardware product before, Glider, but I grew up in the farm implement business, and I was always comfortable around hardware and firmware, working with some of my startups. So that's where I'm at now. But I needed partners, and that's where Peter and my other co-founder John come in.
So computer science, masters in entrepreneurship.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I got a UTD, master's at UTD 3 years ago, May of 2021. I decided to go back, and I learned about, I think it was at an IoT breakfast, that you can go to UTD for free if you're 65 years and older. You just can't knock a paying student out of the class. But I took that as a challenge, as a thing, and so I got the master's in innovation and entrepreneurship, and got to hear some great lecturers came and talked to us and told us about some of his experience in the entrepreneurship world and many others. So that's it's been good. It really rejuvenated me from a youth standpoint, and I've also been I've used to give Don and his program a plug. I've done 15 projects altogether with UT Design, including, I think, 3 with the Science Museum I was involved with. And it was actually responsible for me thinking of coming up with that. And also a couple other crazy ideas I had. So anyway, it's been good.
So computer science, information security, computer science, math, design. Product design. Yep. And can you tell us a little about how the idea came about? When you first thought it was an idea, how did you validate?
Sure. Yeah. So our flagship product is not what you would think of. I don't know if it's on the screen. It's not what you'd typically imagine a normal keyboard to look like. We do sell QWERTY-based keyboards, but our flagship had 3-dimensional rather than 1-dimensional switches. So you can essentially access every possible input on a keyboard without your fingers breaking contact with the device. And the original inspiration, my background is in accessible design, was for people that have limited mobility, people that are unable to vocalize the way that we take for granted and how we communicate, to be able to kind of be on the same level playing field as the rest of us. But of course, as we built it out, then we very quickly realized that, wow, this is better for anyone. Anybody that uses a computer can gain advantage from using this. And then that's also what led to the development of our patented fluid corded character entry algorithm, which can, if you're familiar with the mechanical keyboard space, you may have heard of a programmable keyboard where you can assign any one key to be whatever you want. But our keyboards, in addition to every key being programmable, every combination of keys is programmable. So instead of having 100 possible inputs, you now have 17 billion possible inputs at your fingertips. And that leads to some pretty insane use cases that we're always continuing to see our our user base kind of unfold. And that's where our slogan, type at the speed of thought, comes from, because you can have a different chord potentially for every word in your vocabulary. Even if you only learn 100 chords, that's 50% of it. So there's very, very quick return on investment for the time you spend starting to memorize those chords, for both typing words or for any computer or mouse-based output.
So when did you realize there was a business here and not just something of interest? And what was it that prompted you to throw your hat in and go full time?
I guess the moment that I knew that I needed to be full time was the moment that I had several employees. I felt that I owed it to them, my full attention every day. We had our headquarters opened up. So I think in this day and age, it's a lot easier than maybe historically to have multiple jobs at once, especially with so many jobs being remote now. So I would say there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are thinking like, oh, like I have to take the plunge and quit my job and do this. I don't really think that's the case anymore. I think you can slowly build out multiple projects at once, and then whenever one like this starts to gain a lot of traction, where we were like 6 months behind on our order because people just loved the product so much and wanted it, we had to spend $0 on marketing. So that was the point where I was like, all right, I love this, other people love this, so should really just
When did you do CES in there?
CES was 2020. That was a big moment for us. I think probably the lesson there to share is that don't be afraid of sharing a very minimal viable product, because what we took to CES was a rat's nest of wires that I had hand soldered every single switch. Like, it was very ugly, but we took it to CES. We showed it up in a booth at Eureka Park. I think the booth only cost us like $4K or so. I mean, that was a big investment for us at the time, but we took it there, and then we got coverage from BBC, from Tech Power, from a lot of big names. Ended up getting our attention, and that's what sort of kicked off all of our pre-orders and got us to that point where we could deliver something and start that feedback loop for building that very enthusiastic user base.
The role is described one way of getting into business, and that is build it yourself, show it to people, a lot of people, keep the costs low, and generate early orders from there, build the business in that way. Can you talk a little, Tom, about, you've got a background as an aviator, a pilot.
Yeah.
And that was the genesis for Pango. So
It was, and just backing up before then, I've been in several startups, and so I was sitting in my office thinking, I want to do a startup. What do I not want to do? I don't want any parts. I don't want any manufacturing. I don't want any shipping. And so that got you down to.
I wish you'd told me that 2 years ago.
Oh, I know. Now, you know what? It's not popular with people who are building things. But so I'm a pilot, and I was going to Oshkosh every year to the big trade show, and I was trying to figure out how can I take a technical background and make money in aviation. And the catchphrase in aviation is, if you want to make $1 million, you start with 2. So I ran into the American Bonanza Society, and here's the deal: they quit making bonanzas, and people were the ones they have. They were crashing one about every month, and so the fleet is shrinking, and so they had a need and a desire to increase the safety record of pilots to preserve the fleet and save the pilots' lives. And I'm like, I'm there. So we did it, and they went from delivering a classroom training 4 times a year in the United States. They went online, and then they went into South America, Australia, Europe, and they started training people all over. So that's what it got started with. But in addition to that, we were working with the Helicopter Association. Anybody in here remember Kobe Bryant? Everybody does, probably. They needed to improve the safety record of helicopter pilots. So we worked with them and created a course, and I don't want to scare anybody, but it's called 56 Seconds to Live. And it turns out, if you make better decisions, you can live. But if you don't, on average, 56 seconds later, you and everybody else are dead. Now, I got a briefing with the FAA over this. I got to also meet through this, the design team designed the engine, Imaginuity that flew on Mars. So I have got to meet the most interesting people and they tell me everything, and I've been able to participate. I'm an aviator. I've been able to participate at a level I just couldn't even imagine when this all started. So that's how it got me started.
So you were kind of looking for an idea to start.
Well, yeah, I was kind of looking for something that I didn't want any parts, but I also wanted to figure out how I could take my passion for aviation and my technical background and turn it into money. And that's kind of what got me to it. But since then, by the way, we've done cybersecurity. We're big in that. We're also sort of into healthcare and lots of other things, because it turns out that, training content.
But you started with an area that was very near and dear to your heart, focused on that initially, built the initial business there.
Right. I don't want everybody here to be surprised about this, but I pay a lot more attention to my aviation customers.
And Rick,
On tape.
can you talk a little about the genesis, the idea for Glider, and how the idea came to you, and when you realized there was really something?
So, yeah, mine was a little different. So I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My grandfather opened an Oberlin car dealership in the 20s, and so I always had some admiration for that. And then I've been involved with a lot of startups, and like Tom was saying, you wear all the hats. I love that. I'm a jack of all trades, and I'm love to solve problems. Well, but this particular glider just came about, and some of you may have heard I called it Hobo Loco before, when I was my first business name. And this one just sort of fell in my lap. It's almost like I got pregnant with an idea, and this is my baby now. So I was serving on the board of a science museum in Frisco called SciTech Discovery Center, small museum, and we were contemplating different exhibits. And one of the ideas that I proposed was, let's get some kind of VR exhibit in here. And so I went to UTD and we started working with their EPICS program. If you know any charities that need work done, they have also, like UT Design, they have a program for nonprofits where they'll help them with engineering projects. And we said, hey, I went over there and said, hey, can we get some help creating a VR exhibit? And so we were going through the process with some 5 or 6 students, and they said, hey, there's a lecture on VR here at UTD tonight. None of them were going. It's like, I didn't feel very good about them speaking. But anyway, so I went, and the guy, Ryan McMahon, talked about the latest in VR headsets and all that. And at one point, he starts talking about moving around in VR is a problem. It's an unsolved problem. How do you move around? Moving around with just your thumbsticks is not very pleasant. And gamers do it with video games and first-person shooters and stuff like that. But in VR, it's especially aggravating because the world's spinning on you. But the next morning, I woke up and I had just seen my nephew on his hoverboard a couple months before that, gliding around his house. And the idea came to me. So I called my friend who's a lawyer and said, I mean, the only way I could ever monetize this is to get a patent. Because if I come out trying to advertise it and stuff, it's a good idea, somebody will take it. So I decided to go into patents. So at this point, I have patents in the US and China, Korea, issuing pretty soon in Germany, France, and England and Switzerland. Switzerland happens to be the home of one potential acquirer. So anyway, that I've got something about almost 300,000 in patents, but those patents are the only way I'd ever get any value back out of this. So, but I worked on this while I was going to school, working with UT Design students, coming up with different prototypes, and also some paid engineering to come up with prototypes. And then I was still working on my own, trying to find somebody who could, other people who might be interested in being co-founders. And I finally was talking to Peter, and telling him about it. And I said, I'm going to this show where they're going to be using Glider, Loco as a controller for robots, remote robots. So there's a competition enterprise put on where they were controlling remote robots through VR, like VR, and where they had hands, exoskeletons to control the hand movement, so they could drill and pick up things. But they needed a way to control the movement, so they were using a glider. Peter came out with me, and we had a booth there, and people just saw the reaction. He saw the reaction.
Booth's a generous term.
Yeah. Anyway, we had set up
Table with a
and
black
people
table.
like Peter got Amanda's anyway, some people came by and a lot of kids and people are like, what is this? And so after that, Peter said, I'm on board. And
Well, there's a story there. We'll get to it here
Okay.
shortly. So we've got a couple of
Sorry
passion
for the
projects, design background, interest in providing services and input for disabled users. A contrived business because you wanted to build something around your passion.
Yeah.
And here we have something where we have inspiration from a chance meeting at a science museum. So we've got very different backgrounds in how these businesses arose. So now you've got a paying job, you're making good money, and you say to your wife or your spouse, right, I'm going to give this up. I'm going to start putting thousands of dollars on credit cards. So what was the thought that went through your mind in convincing yourself that there was a foundation for a business here? And what were the steps you took at that point to enable it?
I almost can't believe this, but in my first startup, I'd been in Harris Corporation for 11 years, and I went to my wife and I said, I've been over John and startup that can guarantee me a paycheck in 2 weeks. She said, let's do it. So on my current company, I sort of had the gleam in my eye, and I've talked to people that one day I had a slide deck, and one day we sold a customer, and I had nothing. We had nothing. And I sat with my wife at dinner that night, and I said, look, somebody has finally bought one of these. That means we have got to write some checks. What do you think? She goes, I'm in. What? So it's
Supportive spouses are important.
I'm going to tell you, if you don't have your spouse on board, you're in trouble. So, but she's always been really supportive of it. But the deal is I bootstrapped this thing, and it started with nothing. And then I had a slide deck, and I'll tell a story. One day somebody bought one. And here's the thing, I want you to understand, I had nothing but bravery. I knew I had about 3 months to deliver it, so I got some developers together. We humped it, we delivered it on time.
like Bill Gates' story. He had nothing.
Yeah, well, the deal is you just got to be great. I don't know if we can.
So what was that step of faith for you, Rick?
Well, when I came up with the idea, I had a good paying software engineering job.
Yeah.
And that was enough that and my kids are all out of college. I could take a good portion of my salary and pay my lawyer. So I kind of pursued that angle. I did shop it around trying to get some traction, but the world doesn't beat about path to your door. Despite what you think, you think you've got, people say, oh, that's brilliant. But even the VR industry, and it's kind of funny because Peter and I had a call today, and there's been a couple other companies that went into the VR locomotion business that had gone under. And so I make it a point to contact these guys, and they're really pretty forthcoming. And that's why so I was chasing the VR world for quite a while until I realized, hey, wait, this works with video games. And video games is a completely different business, and it's much more open to the innovation that I've got anyway. And so I was just, to me, it was definitely more than a hobby. It was a business, but I didn't have a way to really go full bore until I got partners. And that's why I was seeking partners.
So Riley, you started off with an idea on your own and hired a bunch of people to help make it happen. And then wasn't it got you to bring in the accountants and start writing plans?
Well, I certainly didn't build either of these companies on my own. I think I tend to give a lot of the credit, but the truth is that there's so many people, probably hundreds of people that have contributed. And I have several co-founders that are, not only are they instrumental, but were foundational to everything that we built. So I certainly don't want to say that I built the company on my own, but I do think that one thing that I love about the culture of the startup world in Texas compared to like traditional Silicon Valley culture is that focus on profitability.
Mhm.
And
We are Texans after all.
yes, we are. And that's from the very beginning. We've always been very profit focused. We've already done distributions to our early investors. We've already had profitable years. I think whenever you're building something from scratch, it's very the philosophy of a lot of founders is, oh, we go find the money and then we build it. We go pitch to VCs and then we build this. Whereas my view is sort of the opposite. My view is that you can always do something, and that you can, even if it's educating yourself on how to build something, like you can always keep taking those steps forward every day, and you should really have no excuse of why you can't build something. And the investors that we have met along the way it's been very organic. There's some other value that they bring to the table other than just the check that they write. We met them somewhere and they're in a part of a tangential industry. They bring some sort of, expertise that we don't have. And I think that if you want people to invest in something, like you sort of have to blaze your own trail, and then you'll kind of meet them along the way, as opposed to a lot of people that go on like these tours. Like I hear these stories of I pitched to 99 VCs and finally we got the check on the 100th one. Like all that time you spent, running around pitching to 99 different people, build the product. That's definitely my inner Texan coming out. How I've sort of seen the culture, especially with all the controversy we've seen from Silicon Valley Bank and a lot of the startups coming out of there. I hope that continues to cultivate in Texas, and I hope that we up here can be leaders in hardware and in entrepreneurship and tech startups and doing it the Texas way, not the traditional, American or Silicon Valley.
Yeah, so I just talking to an investor friend of mine earlier this week, and he told me that on average you're going to make 80 pitches before you get a check. Yes, sir.
So if you're not having to do 80 pitches, you're doing
I'm
well.
almost 100%, honestly,
That's
my
all right.
my success rate.
Well, and the thing about Riley is, and like he said, he did no advertising, but Riley, you put in so much effort on TikTok and social media that it's really good. It's very powerful, a way of attracting. So I don't know how many views did you have on your TikTok? You had one TikTok that had over 1 million.
We have well over 100 million views. I think that's another thing, as if you want to be a leader in your startup, that everybody in the modern world, they don't want traditional advertising. They don't want sexy Apple style renders. They don't want commercials. They want to hear it from the horse's mouth. They want to hear it from the source. And if you want to be in the C-suite or a founder of your company, you have to be that source. And I think that communication, like you don't even call it advertising really anymore, because for one thing, it's a source of revenue. Like whenever I make YouTube videos or TikTok videos, I get paid for that because the content is engaging in a way that it really connects with people. Like I'm not just there to sell you something. I'm just like I'm here, sharing information with all you guys to help you. That's whenever I'm making content, I'm thinking about that and how I can be as transparent as possible with everybody that's watching them. I think the future of tech is transparency. You're looking at decentralization, when you're looking at Web3. So to to really show people that behind the scenes look, and also, you know, those professional renders at the surface as well. Like you still have to hold yourself to the same standard as all those big companies, but not. I'm sort of anti fake it till you make it. I'm of the mindset of let's be honest with people about, hey, this is where we're at. We had to make this thing, so we had to learn how to do this, and don't be ostentatious and showing off what you've created, but rather bring people in along the journey to create it with you.
What was your question?
No, I was going to ask, you had one customer, you wrote the code.
Yep.
You sold that first customer.
Yep.
Who was customers 2 through 5? How did
Okay,
you
so
go
this
about
first customer really was not even in the aviation business. I was just wanting to go get a proof of concept and all that kind of stuff going. So I told them to be a customer, but then after that, I started taking deals with aviation customers. And so the American Financial Society needed to save all their airplanes, and the National Association of Flight Instructors, they need to make flight instructors, better instructors, better business people. So it kind of went like that. And then I'm on the board of a cybersecurity product company, so they became a customer also. You can imagine that.
Okay.
So around Dallas, for instance, I speak on cybersecurity and I speak on entrepreneurship. And if I'm in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, I'm talking about the 10 things that you need to do to improve the safety record of your pilot. So that's kind of that to you.
So the funding that the early customers provided funded the entire business. Did you resort to credit cards? Did rich uncle?
We didn't have any rich uncles, but I decided let me back up. I was running around looking for money. And I was talking to this guy one day and he says something like this: you're not going to get any money. So what, you just need to figure out what you're going to do if you don't have any. And I was walking in my car thinking, okay, what am I going to do if I don't have any money? And then I'm like, oh, you know what, we'll bootstrap this. And what I did, and I think this really works, is you go find you a couple of consulting deals. They pay you to help them, but you take that money and you put it into your company. But you know, also there's a few credit cards involved. It kind of comes and goes like this. I use credit cards mostly to manage cash. That answer your question?
It does, yeah. So early revenue, Rick, how did that come about?
I think that was actually where this whole idea of panel started. Was we had just done a Kickstarter, and in end of January we started in the end of February, and I know Riley can share about some of his crowdfunding experience as well. But that's where Slider's first revenue has come in, is from other than some pitch competition awards that I've been fortunate to grab. But we did Peter, John, our other co-founder, and I launched a Kickstarter, and had the nice pictures of Glider up there and some videos of how to use it and such. And we actually we started collecting names of people who would pay $1 months ahead. We got people, we said, hey, we're going to be launching this Kickstarter. Would you pay $1 to be in line to get the device up, be first in line to get the device at the lowest price? And so we signed up something like 300 people paid $1 just to be first in line. And so we knew that we were going to at least have a chance at a decent first day. And I think we raised our first $10,000, sold our first, 50 units in 38 minutes. So we were on our way. And so we ended up at $83,000, 450 units. And so that's the traction we've shown. When Riley talks about it, I wish I'd known Riley a few years ago when I got started. I think, I've kind of took a different path, and I also wasn't. I think you're fortunate to find co-founders, because that's really what's helped me get going. It's night and day difference when you're trying to do something. Don't try to do it yourself. I think Y Combinator very seldom takes single entrepreneur, solo entrepreneurs. But yeah, so that Kickstarter has given us energy around, hey, we've got evidence that this device is interesting to people, and it's not just people throwing money at us as a donation, yet these people want the device. We've interviewed them, we've given surveys and stuff, and they have they have such a diversity of interest in how they're going to use it, which games I think there's 30 different games that people have mentioned they were going to play with it, because it can be used with Rocket League, Fortnite, Call of Duty, Madden, any game you want. So our goal is to get people to think of the foot controller, glider foot controller, just the way a drummer thinks of a foot pedal and a drum set. They wouldn't play a drum set without it. So why are you playing games without your feet?
And Riley's turned Kickstarters and other programs into a fine art here. So can you talk a little about the philosophy you've used in how you've gone about announcing new product and using these as vehicles for early financing?
Yeah, I think Kickstarter is great, was great when it was created, because it's very much about bringing the power to the individual, like being able to have your customers be your funding source, even if you don't have something that's quite ready to deliver. The culture has changed a lot on Kickstarter, and it sort of has become like, instead of help us build this thing from the grassroots, now most of the highly successful projects that you see on Kickstarter is, oh, we built this thing, like, do you want to be the first to have it?
Marketing.
Yeah, so it's a lot, even a lot of major companies are now using Kickstarter. So, but in general, I think there's a lot happening that has sort of been derivative of what Kickstarter kind of kicked off. There's also been a lot of changes in the Reg CF for non-accredited investors to be able to do crowdfund equity in your business, which is another really interesting option. There's a lot of sites that have started to emerge, like Start Engine, for instance, I know is one that we've talked to a lot and are currently considering, which is a great way for not only for people that want the product, but people that also are those hyper enthusiasts. I can't tell you how many times we get that comment on our videos, like, how do I invest in this? I would love to invest in this. Well, we can't afford an IPO. Like, it's kind of expensive, but now we have options based on this new legislation that's passed, like Reg CF, where you can do like a poor man's IPO. That's basically what it is. So I think those are other options that are definitely worth looking into, especially if you have some sort of like service-based or something that's not as tangible as a keyboard or a foot pump, for instance.
Other sources of financing, Tom, that you've used or have considered?
Yes, I mentioned earlier, I've been in like 7 startups. So I've worked with venture capitalists, angel investors, high net worth individuals. And those are all viable options. It's just that, like in the late 90s, if you had a gleam in your eye, somebody writing a check, and then later, and I think still today, you need some revenue. But you just got to decide whether or not how much and if you want to give up part of your company to get it. So the other thing to think about is sometimes angels and VCs hate each other. And so
And why is that, Tom? Can you explain?
Oh, yeah, because the angels come in, they give you some money, and they're all happy, but then you need it other round. You go to VCs, the VCs cram down the angels, and now the angels have been diluted into nothing. And they all know it, and they hate it. And so and some days it's better than others, but if you're going to go out and get your company funded, the people who are funding your company already know more about what's going to happen to you in the future than you ever will. They will go and put money in your company knowing full well you're not going to do well, and they're going to have to put in some more, and they're going to ultimately gain control of your company. And all those dynamics are at play. And so founders don't like to take money because they don't want to lose control, because what's going to happen, they are going to get fired. Yeah, I mean, that's just, you start your company, you get to a certain point, the VCs decide you don't know how to run it, and they fire you, they bring somebody in who knows less about how to run it than you do. And it just gets really unwound after that. But
How do you really feel?
do what? How do you really feel? Well, I will tell you this, you've got to know this. If you are ever in a startup and you ever are near a boardroom, if somebody says they're going to have a rights offering, that is the You need to duck and run. A rights offering is where the VCs sell themselves enough stock to cram you into oblivion, and then they fire you and you own nothing. And at my first startup, they did that. It was the most brutal thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I was there, and I'll be around anymore. So I'll tell you this: there were 5 of us that they really had to have. Well, they crammed us down too. So we got together and said, "No way, we're not going to go unless you roll us back up." And they did because they had to. But that's the kind of hardball you play with. I mean, it just can be like that. And I hate to say it, but it's once you bring investors into the party, you use a whole different dynamic.
So
That may be more than you want to know.
no, that's very good. So by show of hands again with the audience, if you've been in a startup, how many people have had an unsuccessful exit? Who's been in a startup first of all?
Oh,
8% of you, 70% of you. Okay. Who's had unsuccessful exits?
Yeah.
Who's had successful exits where you've walked out with more cash than you put in? Okay. So you mentioned a challenging funding environment now. We've just gone through a couple of years where with the IPO markets drying up and interest rates being high and there being alternative places for people to park money for a short while. It's said that venture capital and other traditional sources of early stage financing have started to dry up. Maybe they're coming back a bit. Tom, you've seen a lot of changes in the time that you started your company to now. What are the largest differences in the funding environment?
Well, like I said, at my first startup, it was anything. You took your company name and put .com after it, they'd wrap your check. I mean, it was just crazy. But then and even the angels came to this. They wanted you to have a product, be in the market, and have some revenue before, and so that what they were looking for is to give you growth capital. Well, you know what do you do if you just have a gleam in your eye, right? And you got no money, you got no products, you got nothing, you have to bootstrap it. And now here's what happened. Why do I need your money if I have a product, customers, revenues? What are you good for? And so this whole dynamic is really weird because everybody kind of knows it, but it's kind of like the elephant in the room. And now post-COVID, I think we had an era where money was getting easier to get, but now it's kind of drying up again. And so I don't know, it's just really bizarre. But I'll just what I would do if I were anybody in this room, go find you some consulting deals, fund your own company, and forget all that. Because it takes all that time, except for what you talked about, the crowdfunding I think might be a really good buy alternative to make that work.
So it must have taken a bit of financial skill and finagling to wend your way through all of the different products that you're offering and the various fundraising efforts you've made along the way to keep it all moving forward. So in addition to the revenues you're receiving from early product sales, what's been the philosophy and how you stage that?
I think it's really interesting to hear about the journey of the people that are going around pitching and like the .com where things were really bountiful. It's not something that I would consider myself an expert on any means because I've never been on a pitch tour. I've never gone around trying to get money to fund a business. I'm the guy that says, well, I'd rather sit down and spend that time building something. Yes, I think that sort of to sum up what I've said before, that focus on profitability and making sure that you're building something that is sustainable so that you're not put in that position of, oh my gosh, we have 6 months to raise funding or our business is going to die. Like the fact that a runway has become so normalized in entrepreneurship. People ask me all the time, what's your runway? We don't have a runway. I don't want to be in a position where it just sounds like a bad situation for the investor, for the person, for the founder, for everybody to be put in that position of pressure where we need money or everybody's jobs go away and the investors lose all their money. Like why even get to that?
Been through several of these things, and you're always in that runway position. But one of the things I've done, I can't believe I did, is I have fixed revenue, fixed expenses, variable revenue, and variable expenses. And so I have for every expense I have, it's mapped to revenue, so that if my revenues go to zero tomorrow, I do not have to do anything. And I don't, well, I mean, literally zero, but yeah, you understand what I'm saying? It's like, so I've outsourced everything that you can. And I have all these, fractional people and stuff like that, so that I don't have this.
Yeah, if your revenue goes away, you.
Yeah, you just, yeah,
hire those people.
right, right. And they all have other things to do, and it's its own challenges. I'm with you. That whole revenue thing, and you got 2 weeks to run out of money and all that.
I feel the same way. I've been filling out forms and they'll say, what, how many, what's your number of months on your runway? It's like, well, I'm in total control of how long our money lasts. Yeah, we would like to get a little more funding to launch in a bigger way, but we can control when we spend the money. So there is no, it's an infinite runway in a way.
There are some investors that are looking for that pressure
Oh.
situation.
Oh, yeah.
Good
And
point.
I would also say that those are the investors that you probably want to avoid. So,
I've been where you can't make payroll tomorrow,
mhm.
and you have less than 24 hours to find the money. And you get the money within minutes before you're about ready to call them in and tell them when all of a sudden the money comes in, and it's like, and you have to pretend nothing happened. That was good.
Not fun. So we have a few minutes left.
Peter,
Questions?
Peter, can I,
Yep.
there was a gal that I was introduced to yesterday that I was going to offer to, or suggest to be on the panel.
Oh.
I'd like for her to give us an idea of what she's doing. She's an entrepreneur. She was involved with, but anyway, Aisha introduced me to her. Naomi, tell us about you.
Yeah, come on up.
Hey guys.
Please.
Thank you. Hey guys, I'm Naomi. Thanks for this is my second company I founded. Similar story, sort of hodgepodge. I invented a coffee machine, so single serve coffee machine with a grinder. We're in our third round of funding, second of which I'm including Kickstarter, which we just finished a couple weeks ago. First round was pre-seed. We're now raising 1.2 million. So kind of a hodgepodge story. I am not an engineer. I didn't go to college. My background, my first company was marketing. And so I have no experience. It sounds like you do to
But
build
you
your own.
do like coffee.
Yes. Yes. So yeah.
Another passion project.
Kona?
Yeah, it was passionate, yeah, for sure. But I funded 350,000 up until last fall. And so I had at that point a third working prototype. And then I take taking money really seriously. And so I didn't want to take anyone's money until I saw the runway.
Yeah.
And so then raised the 350 that then got us to Kickstarter. I stopped it at 350. It was a $500,000 raise, so I stopped it because Kickstarter was going to validate, and then we more than doubled our valuations in 6 months. And so, but yeah, it's been like I can't here's like just hang out and do it. I'm like I'm not an engineer. I can't do any of these things because but the way that I did it, it was nice. If y'all don't have money, I worked with a really small engineering firm out of California, and then they outsourced to China and
For manufacturer.
yeah, the manufacturer in China and who made the prototypes. China ultimately did not give us the IP, so we had to let go. I'm spending about $200,000 to recruit an IP with a US firm, but and it does kind of suck. It does suck, but it's like I couldn't pay this nearly $1 million contract with the local had I not gone the cheaper route
Right.
first and ultimately have to recruit the IP. So it was like, it's not what I wanted, but it's what I did.
Quick question, when it was outsourced to China, what's the reason the contract did not specify the IP?
What's the what?
What's the reason the contract agreement did not specify?
We do. I owned everything. I have a
No, not
utility.
you, the California company.
Everybody, I own everything. I even filed for Chinese patent. The China still did not give me.
They wouldn't give you
I
the drawing. They
rightfully-
wouldn't give you the drawing.
Correct. Yeah, I
We're
rightfully
not talking
own.
about IP. You're not talking about patents. You're talking about the drawing.
Yes, yeah, correct. Sorry, yeah. So, and then we filed a Chinese patent, and I thought I was pretty protected. It's like, hey, we own it. The contract says I own it. Any idea in your head, I own it. And they did not give us the currency.
And the culture and the respect for civil.
Yeah, it was really. I was born, but I thought I protected myself.
So just a quick question. lots of coffee makers out there. Why this? And
Yeah.
what's different about it?
That's a great question. There's three main things. So it's a single serve. So we ultimately want to compete with Keurig. It's conical burr grinder. And then the price point is around 200. Right now it's 250. We're trying to put 200 to get it down to 200. And ultimately there's nothing like that. Most single
Normally you're at
serve.
1,000.
Yeah, 1,000, 500 and up. A Jura is popular. It's around $3,000. So we really kind of want to, and then I brought in really good talent, like by the grace of God. So I have the former director of quality of Starbucks on my team. I have a senior engineer who managed 1,500 engineers, and he's leading the company. But so ultimately, if y'all drink coffee, we're trying to make a pour over type of cup of coffee with one touch of the button for around $200. So we're just trying to make a good cup of coffee where you don't have to spend $1,000.
So sale on your own branded website or on Amazon?
It's
or-
on, yeah, it's Kickstarter still. They actually do late, if you knew that, they're doing late backers now. So, but it ended on the 23rd of April. No, 23rd of May, sorry. It started on the 23rd. So we're doing late backers just to just do that. But yeah, we're going into manufacturing into the
Okay, and the prototype you built in your garage out of cardboard?
in China.
Italy?
In China.
No.
No, everything was still.
So
with
you had the
engineers.
idea, and you worked with it, and then
Correct.
outsourced engineering to
Yeah.
the whole thing.
But it was hard. Like China, I mean, everyone kind of warned you about, but they do it cheap. Like if y'all don't have money and you have an idea and you can't do the really expensive, because it is very expensive to do here. What I'm telling people now is kind of like, I was like, you know what, this actually did work. If you can do it like 60% in China and you don't tell them you're going to get out and bounce out and just go do 60% where they can't mass produce it. Like they can't mass produce what they have because there's so many issues with it right now. Not so many, there's just stuff it's a prototype. So have China do it for a fraction of the cost and then reverse engineer it and then have someone else where you're going to spend more money. But at that point, you have a working prototype, you have investors, you have stuff. I did it that way.
Yeah, something like this. It's easier. If anybody here ever goes to China, do not take your laptop.
Oh.
So they will separate you from it by taking you to lunch or something, and someone will take everything off of your laptop.
I was warned. I thought I was protected and stuff, but I think the flip side is you can do a fraction of the cost, and then you can reverse engineer it where it's safe. So
I used to live in Shenzhen, and the way that we would sort of control the IT variable is we have 7 different suppliers all making a different part.
oh yeah, that's a good. That's what
None of
Apple
them have
does.
all the different pieces.
Yeah, that's what Apple does. So not one person has it. Yeah. But to do a prototype, you would typically only work with one firm,
One
right?
design firm.
Yeah, one design firm.
Yeah,
You wouldn't do that. So.
Questions from the floor?
Rick, you said your device can be used with just about any game.
Yeah, it can be mapped, keys, mouse movement, horizontal, vertical mouse movement, and or a gamepad.
Is it appealing to everybody or?
Want to appeal to buyers.
But an expert gamer uses
Oh.
other devices say, I can do better.
I
with
wouldn't-
this, or I
Yeah.
can.
I think I know what you're saying. If I had the technique for shooting basketballs, I wouldn't go to Curry and try to change his game. So I won't go after top esports guys with our product because they're already like so good with their hands. Unless they start having crippling diseases, like they start having carpal tunnel, then they might change their mind. But no, we're looking at kind of here below that want to be competitive. But then there's also people who maybe want to take a drink or eat a bowl of cereal while they're playing and they can actually use lighter.
So let me come back to my story originally. I've known Rick for a long time. We went out to the enterprise competition and we had this little setup in the back blocks. And there was a kid who was watching all these adults playing around on Fallout 4 with their feet on glider. And he was just watching and he had a bag of Cheetos in his hand. He was eating Cheetos and he had all sticky Cheeto fingers.
Yeah, Coke too.
Yeah. And he had a Coke and he put the Coke down and he sat down on it and started moving around in Fallout 4, dodging zombies and all kinds of weird bugs, mutant bugs. All the while he was eating Cheetos and taking sips of his Coke. And it was at that point that I thought, there's a product here. Maybe we make a start in video. So,
I was gonna say, Naomi, our students at UTD have done projects. We've done 15 projects for Rick. We actually had a student team make an automated French press. So
Oh,
we've
cool.
done coffee projects
Yeah.
before. If you need help with first prototypes, we're not free, but we're cheap.
Yeah, great. Cool.
Naomi, their program is incredible.
Oh, cool.
Y'all been doing it for 15 years, or something like that?
just show of hands, who else used the program?
Yeah.
Riley.
So be sure to take advantage of that. Talk to Don. He can go get some insight that you wouldn't get otherwise. They've got some incredible talent. Those kids will, those kids.
Yeah.
Chuck, is there something, you've been involved in venture capital and all this, or is there anything that you want to say to the group?
Well, yeah. In a sense, no, this has been great. I mean, I remember Rick a long time ago trying to explain to some 60-year-old angel investors this game thing. And ever since, I've been like, I'm really glad he still speaks to me. So,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I think this,
Yeah, I got you.
I've enjoyed listening to the conversation. It is sad that there are so many people, young people, who have been convinced they want to start a business, but they don't know how to do anything. Well, all of these people know how to do something, and that's the big difference.
Just trying.
And how's your tech targets company coming along? You started a step.
Oh, yeah. No, and I do everything. So my undergraduate degree was in economics,
Economics, good.
and my master's degree was in economics. And some wonderful guys told me, quit that shit, you need to write computer programs. And it turned out they were correct. But I also now know why you might want to choose an 8mm bearing versus a 10mm bearing to make an electromechanical device.
And not just for economic reasons.
Oh, yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, for mechanics, 'cause I'm making this stuff and I have to cut the stupid pieces of metal if I decide to change something.
So I was gonna say, one of Rick's projects was a firefighting robot that was featured on Channel 11.
And again, they were using their feet to control the movement through a camera on the robot. So they could have the headset on and they could control this robot running around.
Well, see, so you and Tom need to talk because really you can't fly a stupid airplane without using your feet.
That's
on the
right.
controls.
Yeah. We're gonna change.
You can't. You have to have your hands and your feet and all it's got to work together.
Another question.
Yeah, I'm gonna bridge like glider, for example. I'm a mother of a son that loves to play video games, and your TikTok expertise, right? Like, how much are you using social media to contact younger generations? That I'm just in here. My son's gonna hear about this, and it's all he wants for Christmas.
Hmm.
Here's me spending whatever it costs to get it to
We'll
him.
get you.
So how do you bridge, your product with his marketing expertise? Is there agencies that you're using?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah.
just like you said, organic? I'm doing it myself. I'm sure you have some people
Yeah,
that are smart to help you there, but like, how do you?
Yeah, no, we have
We have a third.
We have a third co-founder who is 39, who grew up, and has been in games media, and so and he has a podcast. So he's kind of he's my way of getting that in. My nature as an engineer isn't I'm pretty good on LinkedIn, but that's fine. But I'm not so hot on video, and frankly, I haven't had the. It's kind of funny. I almost said I don't have the time. When you say I don't have the time, you're really just saying I choose not to do this versus that. But I put my head into other things in social media. So
And you raise a good point, because I think there has been a pretty drastic change in how you can go about promoting an idea and build that idea into something tangible so it can become a product.
And he's got it.
Yeah.
Naomi, I'm curious to bridge off of that. How are you going to promote yours once you launch?
So it's been really good feedback in the last, like this year, just taking the prototype. I like been carried around all over the US and then just doing it, posting on social as well. The name, my company's name is Naomi Brew, if you want to look it up. But
Say it again.
Naomi Brew, Nomi, I take off the name. It was 99 cents a week. So versus the $500,000 one that I'm recommending. Coffee connoisseurs. And so this year, because we don't have the machine yet, we're just still pre-selling. We want to go after like the coffee experts and get like raw feedback. So the sommelier of coffee is called a Q grader, Q for quality. And so get in front of a panel of Q graders and like just let them do blind tests and all that. And so once we get the sign off of the coffee experts, although our machine is not $3,000, then I think we'll get buy-in from the general public.
And use social media.
Yeah, social media. Sorry, yeah, social media. Yeah, social media right now.
Let me add something. There's a whole lot of push these days around what they call self-serve, meaning I want to go to your website. I want to learn everything about you without having to call you.
Yeah.
So if you are running around with business cards and then they go check your social media presence, you don't have any, you're done. Yeah, I'm sorry, you were about to.
It's that point. It's just how much do you guys go out and have what are they called? We're like panel discussions with your consumers or potential. Oh, it's facing right now. Market research. Yeah, just market research. Like, what are you guys doing? Yeah, nowadays to like get feedback from your potential consumers.
We don't have any production product yet, so it's a little hard to do that.
We do have prototypes.
Yeah.
So the prototypes have been used by streamers and competitive esports players. We've gotten feedback both on the design and the operation of the glider, but also on the potential use cases that use it for and what they're excited about. They're not. So even you can do, there's a lot you can do even just with 3D printed. There's a lot of engineering to get to that point, and it's expensive. It takes a lot of time, but it's worth the effort to get the feedback from users.
There's one question.
Yeah, I'm a little confused, but I'm 75. So I was in the merger and acquisition business and financial business as one was a telecom sense. And I don't hear anything about private equity groups, family groups. So are y'all safe a startup that you do not need the $2 million, $5 million type investment? Are you just like
I don't think we probably meant to not talk about that because there's this little thing called SPV, special vehicles, where you could have accreditors come in into another entity and then invest in your company. And a lot of those are private equity, family offices, and people like that. So it just kind of depends on who you're going after and knowing who your audience is and stuff like that. Private equity, usually they want a pretty high revenue threshold.
They want to hire, like they're going to be.
$2 million check.
I want to blow that up.
Okay,
Because
please do.
I'm kind of living in this right now. Boeing just came to you, identified you as a unicorn. I don't care what your books are. I know you're going to be $1 trillion business in the next 5 years.
Were you listening to him?
Just found out Sony identified you as $1 trillion industry. PlayStation, they want to put that in the box with every PlayStation. that goes out the
Nintendo,
door.
not Sony, but
Wouldn't be curious if you don't want to deal with those guys. But
Yeah,
DeLonge,
absolutely.
they come in and they say, you know what? If I can get cold brew down $200, because right now to get
Yeah.
cold brew, you've got to spend $1,500 to get their machine, right? You just got identified as a unicorn. I don't care what your books look like. No due diligence. Let's talk. How would you guys?
I know exactly how I would handle it. I was going to say this earlier. If anybody ever makes you an offer, it's a life-changing event, take it. Do not imagine that, that wasn't enough or blah, blah, blah. And the other thing is, and I've been through something like that, if they're wanting to buy you to take you off the market, you know what? If the number's big enough, let them do it. But I've got to tell you, twice in my life, I could be sitting in the Bahamas right now, not here tonight, if the people who were running things would just taken the offer because it was a life altering offer, but they didn't think it was enough. So
They waited.
I've already,
if I get identified as a unicorn and they got a check big enough, I'm done.
I've already been asked what I would sell for, like just what's my number. What I like, so with that hypothetical situation, you're having to talk about a large company who needs to be innovative and who's willing to see the risk and who's willing to do that. That doesn't like what I am finding is that they want a lower risk. They want to see you taking market share. They want to get past that.
Exactly.
You really want a very innovative company to do that. But even if they say you're $1 trillion company and he's only making 2 million, then he's not going to tell you you're trillion, because then he would stay in it until
They
he's
won't
trillion.
tell you.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, it just gets down to this. What is a life altering event? And if they offer you enough money that's going to change your life, take it. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
I would like to support Tom with a story from running an angel network for years.
Yeah.
Had a guy came to us, had an interesting industrial product, told the investors that my group of investors, he had just turned down an offer to sell. He had 3 employees. He just turned down an offer to sell his company for $8 million.
Yeah.
And one of the investors raised his hand and said, if you will pay me $50,000 in cash before sundown today, I won't tell your wife you turned that down.
Oh my God.
2 days later, the guy came back to us and said, sold my company. I mean, if somebody makes you an offer like that, dude, go think about something new.
Yeah.
while you're on the
I'm telling
beach.
you, go decide that why you're in this company. My horror story was they offered us $6 a share, and the investors said, "Oh no, that's not enough." It was going to be a stock swap. 6 months later, that company shot to $60 a share, and all of us would be wealthy beyond our freaking dreams if we had just said yes.
Questioning.
No, it's not just to hearing what Naomi said. You're already ahead of the game, Naomi, because you have a vision of where you want to be in 2035. A lot of startups don't have that, and I know that for a fact. I've talked to some of them and some VCs who don't have. I was told me entrepreneurs don't have a roadmap of how to get from Dallas to LA.
Yeah.
And because you have that, you know how to get there.
No, thanks.
That's the big thing.
Yeah, I want to get, and like ultimately for us, it's consumers and then hotels.
Yeah,
No
so
one gets excited about
if
hotels.
you have that, you know exactly what the roadmap is.
Yeah.
And a lot of startups don't have that.
Yeah, no,
So
thanks.
you're ahead of
It
the game
helps.
already.
Thank you.
There was a show on TV a few years back. It was a reality show, and it was the guy who bought for like the largest hotel chain in the world or whatever. He brought all like a competition and brought people in to do pitches for products. And if he, and that's what he would do. And if they won the competition, they got purchase orders for billions
Yeah.
of dollars because he would buy
Hotels
for
is,
all
yeah,
these
that's
hotels.
hotels.
Yeah, so you're right though. There's big business there.
Yeah.
Especially stuff that goes into
There's
something.
a company in California that was going bankrupt, and their biggest competitors came in to buy the company out of bankruptcy for lots of money. But the founders, their ego was bruised. So me and my partner got that company for less than the value of the assets of the company. Okay, and you know what? So these guys could all be in the Bahamas right now if they had just not been leading with their egos. And
But you
now
don't
here we
know.
sit.
You know, like Keurig, y'all know what that guy, the founder, sold his stake for? He sold it for cash. The co-founder held equity. Anybody? John
Not
something, John S. It's now worth multi-billion, $50,000. So like if he took y'all's advice and he just sold, he did sell for
But we're
$50,000.
talking
about $1 trillion.
No, I think we're talking about $5 million.
Yeah, I
Not
know.
50,000.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, I don't know why he sold it for
I don't either. I put the operative word is life.
Yeah, I agree.
So
Yeah.
let me ask the question that's more realistic. So most of the venture capitalists, they used to go, I'll give you $200,000, but I want 30% of the company.
Yeah.
How many would, and that's the realistic offer that you hear is like $200,000, $300,000 for somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30%.
So I think at that point, you've got to sit down and say, it's not just you.
That's
the company. You've got existing investors, you've got customers, and you have to make a decision that serves the needs of all of those stakeholders. And if you're in a position where you may need to raise an additional round, that type of offer will put you in a very bad position for that next round. If you need that next round to get to the next milestone, or to get to market, or to get to profitability, then that becomes a very poor decision at that point. You're better off.
When is it?
Well, no, I think it's.
'Cause I don't, that's the one offers that
I would see. Well, but I think you have to show them the math, that here's the math. I don't even care what the existing, I don't care. And you see that on Shark Tank all the time, right? Doesn't matter what the existing guys have in it. Doesn't matter what the entrepreneur have to, it's what is the value of the company, its potential, what's its financial growth path.
Yeah.
So here's the other thing you could do if you could talk them into it. And a lot of people are doing this now. It's the either the approved venture or an SPV, which means that they give you the $200,000, but you don't value it until some future point.
That's the
Oh,
same.
that's a convertible.
Okay.
For convertible.
That's a
That's-
convertible.
Yeah,
We have-
but you are still valuing it to some extent, because most investors on a safe or convertible note want to have a cap.
Yeah, like half.
Well, okay, but here's the deal. You got to think about the negotiating table. I get all that. But
Yeah.
you got to know, you got to be real smart about what you're going to allow the cap to be. If
Yeah.
it's going to be one.
Yeah.
But SPVs is not exactly the same thing, even though it sort of is. But it amounts to letting a bunch of people get in.
And I have a feeling that all of your all's cap tables are maintained and being controlled. Is that correct?
I mean, yeah, but you also
Yes,
have
sir.
to like, you have to check your ego a little bit at the table. Like I started with a $20 million cap, then I went to 15, then I went to 10, then I went to 8. And I said all that pre-seed at 5, now I'm at 12. So in 6 months, I've more than doubled, but you do kind of have to check your ego.
Yeah.
And just say,
Yeah, I have to go back to, you could, if when somebody makes you a life offer, take it.
no, yeah, I think we all.
Yeah, there's always a downside. Go ahead.
Question back.
So have anyone done anything, especially for unfold?
I mean, this is my invention. Riley's Caracorder is his invention.
Starting from zero.
Starting from zero, yeah. There was we had no. Is this going on TikTok?
Of course it is.
Absolutely. Medical
But
devices.
medical would be, I mean, yeah, this could be used for therapy, so yes.
Well, medical devices are a little different because there's a lot of risk involved and there's a lot of approval involved. And I don't know a lot about it, but I do have an investor friend who says I wouldn't give you a nickel for all the stock because of the risk. But if you want to talk about that, I can talk to you about it.
There's an event this Sunday, by the way, off UTD campus in regards to that very thing. So
And actually, I would also suggest, look up Mass Challenge. It's an organization, we participated in the accelerator. They do a lot with medical device companies.
I can go in two different ways. I can just sell the product to whoever,
Sell the license, sell the patent,
sell the actual product.
So build
build
and sell.
build the product and sell it.
Because what we do, I've done my research. My advice would save literally 2 million people of an operation on their body parts. I'm not gonna say what body parts.
Okay.
And actually wearing that product for them.
Well,
And I've been wearing it for over 5 years. It's saved me from an operation.
It sounds like a good candidate for commercialization. Be good to have a discussion about it after the.
the thing to think about is how long is it going to take to get it approved and can you stand that?
FDA,
I don't want to do medical, but because I was told by a doctor, this is a medical device. Because it basically stops.
Well, you have to
Yeah,
be
it's the
careful.
FDA.
You could talk about your device in an unfortunate way And suddenly the FDA has got proof it's a medical device, although really maybe it's not. So you need to really make sure you understand how to not force yourself into FDA approval.
And Don,
Like, you
Don
can
eventually
talk
made a
about-
suggestion here
You
too.
can just talk about it in a weird way. If you're,
So our UTD students, our biomedical engineering students have won 3 national championships against the best universities in America in medical devices that they created. We are partnered at the hip with UT Southwestern. We probably do 15 or 20 medical device projects with them every year. So if you're a startup doing something in the medical device field, come see me.
Innovate Dallas on Sunday.
We're not free, but we're cheap. If you want to talk, we're free, but affordable. Team, brilliant students, for less than you pay one
if you
intern.
don't have any money, don't talk about it like a medical device. It's just a thing.
Good medical device for her birthday.
Any more burning questions at this point?
Where's your legal department?
Oh, that's a good question.
You have for facility.
You mean us? Us?
Coming up.
No, I'm asking.
John?
Yeah.
John, tell them about IP.
Partner with the
Okay,
legal department.
all right, so this is an academic course,
Well, no, I'm just curious.
not sponsored research, which means the students will sign over 100% of the IP to you. We don't keep any of it. We don't want to keep any of it. If our students create something for you in a capstone program, it's yours.
It's a 3-page.
And they're not selling it. The students aren't selling it. The students aren't promoting it. So they're not legally involved.
But you probably still need.
All right, let's give them a hand.
You guys are still working stuff like IoT projects.
Why don't you come see me when we're done here? Come on up.
I'm counting in 30 seconds.
Yeah, okay. All right, so Don, you want to go ahead and start real quick and just a quick introduction?
Oh, going around.
Oh,
Yeah.
around the room.
Just go,
Okay, Don Prochel, Director of Corporate Relations, UT Dallas, do team-based projects for our graduating seniors in any phase of computer science you can name, plus electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, biomedical engineering. So we'll give you a team of brilliant students for less than the cost of an intern. Come see me.
It's an awesome good program.
Good elevator.
My name's Anthony Tomasic. I'm CEO of World to Incorporated. I'm here for a life-changing offer. So we have spent the last 4 years, we have patents. We have redesigned my software as aid, call it application manufacturing. And you have to write 1/10 of the lines of code that you normally write. So please come see me if you're interested.